Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Nocerino, and welcome to this week's episode of Selling with Intent. Sales is not an easy gig. It never has been, but today it's more challenging than ever. So that's why we are focused on having conversations with sales and marketing leaders so we can share strategies, learn from each other, and ultimately progress our own careers. So today we will be chatting with Mr. Bryce Nobles, who is on the growth team at MX. Bryce, thank you for joining. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on this call. This is going to be a great time.
Yeah, very excited. And I know for everyone listening, Bryce could literally have a child at any moment. So he's going to get that call, I'm sure, as it always goes, right in the middle of this. So if that happens, Bryce, you let us know. We can always reschedule.
If you see me just get real worried and getting sweaty and stuff, I got the call. So, but we should be fine. This is going to be a good time. So.
I love it. You're probably our only guest ever that will have a wife that's potentially in labor during our chat. So thank you for being on. Really appreciate you. I am particularly excited to catch up with you because you have such a unique role. So we were chatting a lot about it, and it's actually hard to define. Like, you sit somewhere between sales and marketing. You focus on driving revenue, which of course you should. That's what everyone should be focused on. But you've really done such a great job aligning cross-functional teams on a very data-driven, revenue-focused strategy. So I'd love to have you share a bit about your role at MX.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's hard to define, but it's working. And I think that's what we roll with our MX. Whenever I talk to my my boss who I report into, he's like, hey, man, I don't understand it, but it works great. But in short, how you define yourself is really how you limit yourself, in my opinion. And, we're all about trying to get that ROI, right? How do we justify our existence, especially in today's economy and stuff like that. But, the best way to define my role is, leveraging marketing dollars to accelerate pipeline, whatever early funnel, late funnel, really managing that process, where on the sales side, you have people doing forecasting on, when deals are expected to close. Very similar process, but for our different stage gates. And when I first started at MX, it was like the first week, our CMO got up there and mentioned, like, hey, our marketing team, he was talking to the sales organization. He was like, hey, our marketing team just totally, hit it out of the park when it came to marketing leads. We missed our pipeline number by a couple million, but MQL is doing great. And I was like, that's kind of wrong. And that's really where, talking to our VP marketing, he's like, that's why you're here. So that those marketing qualifying leads, or MQLs, really turn into pipeline, and that pipeline really gets accelerated. So that's really where I'm coming in, is managing the pipeline on a marketing aspect for our organization, which is awesome. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. I often see those two organizations not aligned on how they measure success. We'll definitely dive into that. But first, I do want you to give a little bit more background to how you got to where you are today, because I know you started as a BDR, which, we all know that's a rough gig. So I'd love for you to share a bit more about your journey getting to your position now.
Yeah, great. So I've been at MX for about a year. Prior to that, I was just right down the street at a company called Qualtrics, where not only was I a BDR, but I was a part-time BDR still in college. So that was quite the experience. Where that's where you ride or die. You make 60 phone calls or you're out, right? You're fired. And that was, so what I did there was, you had to get good, right? You have to pay your dues, and you need to really just drive at it. So I spent my first 3 months really struggling on how to figure this out. There's so much unknown about this. But being a part-time person, and being in school, and I'm a humanities background student, actually, and I wanted to figure out how humanities work in the school place. I took an academic approach, which was really fun, where I actually got college credit for doing my BDR job in the humanities degree. Super unconventional, but I got a ton of just credit from it, school credit, which is awesome, like internships and all that stuff.
Perfect.
Writing blogs, and the humanities school was just loving it, because, like, hey, we justify our existence too, right? We can make it. So having that training in college of, like, challenging the status quo, doing research and reading and writing really good, started to pick up really well when I got bumped into the tech stack, right? So leveraging Salesforce and LinkedIn, and starting to get familiar with all this stuff. And I was starting to really understand, well, actually I came across and I want to spend a little time on this just because it's important to build the foundation. When I was a BDR, I came across this whole other side of data of my accounts. They had some engagement with it, but I wasn't familiar with what that meant. I was like, hey, who are all these people that are downloading content, and who are all these people that are attending our webinars and stuff? And I was like, well, long story short, that was actually the marketing side of the business. And that was all the interactions that marketing was having. And we're totally separate organizations at that time. And I started poaching, which costs them, you're starting to take their leads over and stuff like that. But I was like, hey, I'm just going to go for it, and we're going to get revenue. And, money doesn't lie, right? Revenue doesn't lie. So I got really good at that, not just poaching, but using that and going back and forth and starting to be more collaborative with marketing and sales. And what happened was I got so good at it that I skipped the whole inside sales of that organization and went straight to enterprise sales. I was the millennial to the seasoned reps because I understood how to leverage insights from LinkedIn, but also read Salesforce and understand engagement. So I did about 3 years of team selling on that enterprise team, which I consider my MBA in the sales process, which was phenomenal. And that's where, if you know anything about Qualtrics, they went on this massive run before they got acquired by SAP. And it was phenomenal. And then what happened was after that 3 years, we started to grow to a size where we really got to focus. We had to focus on scale. So I had the opportunity to go into an operations enablement role. And I did that for about 2 years, which was awesome. Onboarding reps, showing them how to accelerate pipeline from the get-go. Again, our whole metrics on that team was around revenue as well as how can we get the, X amount of reps to hit their quota in X amount of time frame and shorten the cycles and increase the revenue that way. So what happened was, after getting about a 2 year stint of that, I had an opportunity with MX to open up on the marketing side. And I was like, well, I got sales experience, I got a little bit of operations experience, and then I call this the startup trifecta, where I'm like, hey, why not? Let's just jump into marketing and leverage the other two. So I call that the startup trifecta. And that's really led me to this role where I can leverage the literacy of being in sales and being in operations, and definitely being a fish out of water in marketing, but loving every moment of it, learning as I go, and then starting to incorporate more of that marketing base, which has been really helpful to connect all three of these different domains, which are generally really spread far apart. So
yeah, and I would say too that you just have so much more credibility and so much more wherewithal of how things work, having started in sales. Because you've been in the shoes, you've been in that seat. And so to go into operations and really focus on how to perfect the sales cycle and efficiency and productivity, and then to round it out with marketing. Yeah, I love the startup trifecta. You're very well-rounded.
I like to say I'm a sales rep that snuck into marketing and stole their budget and playing a Robin Hood role where I can go disperse that budget back to sales where they want it. So
you're the mole.
Yeah, pretty much. It's great.
No, that's great. And I think one of the things that so many companies we talk to struggle with is aligning across the organizations. So one of my favorite things about your story at MX is what you kind of touched on previously. You completely flipped the measurement model on its head. So I'm curious about give me the dirt on what challenges you came across, because that's a mind shift change, a big one. So did you run into people that were really stuck in their ways, and maybe not outing them here, but walk us through how you navigated that whole process?
Oh, 100%. Luckily, the way that really got this going, there's a lot of ways to go at this, but having internal executive champions, right? People that when I got hired on, there was some former people I worked with to validate and vouch what I did, right? Now, if you don't have it, that's not a guarantee either, but it's great to have that executive connection to be able to help validate and promote your internal. It's all about recognizing your internal brand, right? What's your street cred? Do you have any of that? If you don't have it, I like to follow this process. Step one is you just ride along, right? You just sit in and nod your head and be a yes person. Yes, I'll do this. And that's that second point. You provide value, whatever way you can. And a lot of times that's out of your comfort zone, out of your job description as well. But when you provide value, you gain trust. And as soon as you gain that trust, it's so hard to gain. You're grinding to get it. As soon as you get that trust, you take over, you nail it, you scale it. And then for me, I like to lead it, get off it, right, and move on to the next thing. But really, that's been the center approach. So a lot of that was understanding the status quo. Where are they currently at? Where's marketing at? Where's sales at? and where are the metrics at, which is extremely important. Metrics matter and control everything.
Yeah.
So I had to really spend time tuning in what metrics were important to both sides, on the marketing side and on the sales side, and then going up the chain of command, which for me, I don't have individual contributors. I have technology underneath me, which is great, right? But I definitely need to understand how to go up that chain of understanding, look, you're trying to drive marketing, you're trying to drive all these marketing leads. Sales is trying to drive something totally, entirely different. So in the past 3 quarters, our marketing team now is 100% graded on pipeline progression, way down the funnel. And it's being able to expose and understand those gaps. And as soon as those metrics start to tweak and align better, we're swimming together. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating until you get to that point, but it takes a lot of hard conversation. Again, 3 quarters, that's a long time to get us to that point. But then now we're rowing together, which is getting us, again, we got work to do, but we're in a better spot. Does that make sense? Hopefully that answered your question.
Absolutely. Oh, it sounds like you've just been successful in transitioning the company to focus on leads when sales has always been trying to close accounts. So now we're aligned. And ABM. I mean, ABM is a funny term because it means something very different to everyone. And I'd argue it's not account-based marketing by any means. It's account-based everything, which is what it sounds like you, at a lot of places it's an uphill battle, but you were able to really get the MX leadership team and the MX business to recognize that accounts should be what matters the most.
Yeah, I think where ABM programs fail is they focus too early in the funnel where, hey, let's find the biggest name logos that we were not penetrated at all with. And again, provide value, get a quick win. Let's start. The best place to start any ABM program is an opportunity-based program, right? Where are the biggest deals? Who are the most successful reps, right? And then the marketing machine is phenomenal, right? You have this internal ecosystem, which is phenomenal, especially for these big deals. You loop in the solution engineers, you loop in the subject matter experts, but getting that learning curve. And again, a lot of this is not me. A lot of this is getting the team just super hungry. And we've hired a lot of really hungry folks that want to jump in and be uncomfortable and just be fish out of water. But as soon as we jumped in on the opportunities and saw how we tilted the needle on, and again, that's our we had these big hairy metrics of pipeline progression, and no one knew how to really do that. How do we influence pipeline? I'm like, hey, product marketing, here's how you do it, right? Just giving them just a taste, and then they connect the dots beautifully and they go. Yeah. So it's just helping them understand it's like a language barrier between them. But as soon as you connect the dots on the sales side and on the marketing side, so many times those really tenured reps just shake your head like, so why do you do this? Yeah. Right. And you got to be comfortable with that. You got to be comfortable and just like, hey, every rep has their own style. Some reps don't need this. They already have the connections they need. But for ramping reps and accelerating reps, they don't have those deep-rooted internal connections, especially as you go from small startup to decent size or hyper-growth startup where you're hiring a lot of folks. You don't have that tight-knit niche group that you had a year ago or 2 years ago. You have a bigger ecosystem. So it's just facilitating that ecosystem, which is great.
Yeah, and that's when it becomes so important to have processes in place to help scale, because you start to lose control. So in terms of you mentioned you have technology under you. Arguably easier to control technology than individual contributors, so that's good. Would love for you to share a bit about. I mean, you're a customer of Sixth Senses, so I know you're using our data a ton, and you seem to be a master at manipulating data. And I think, from our conversations, the data has been your foundation and kind of your justification for everything that you're doing. So can you walk us through a little bit about how you view data and the importance of data in this world?
Yeah, very, very simply is we have an understanding of, how do I say this? You have an understanding of what actions need to happen to progress pipeline, right? So for us, we need to have that champion, right? Solidified, then qualified. Then we need to have those stakeholders. We're a B2B2C organization, so we don't have very many transactional deals, right? Very long, high deal values, so we can get deeper than most accounts on. But a lot of these practices are the same. So first step, do we have a champion? Right. So leveraging Sixth Sense, we can see the engagement, right? And Sixth Sense is beautiful because On one side of it is you can see what combined sales and marketing interaction they've had, right? That dark funnel stuff that the sales rep or marketing may or may not know of, right? Hey, they have a C or a B score. They're not at that A level. Hey, you're trying to run a $500,000 to $1 million deal with a low engaged person right now. Well, this person needs to be a fanatic. Mm-hmm. This unlocks our playbook based off of on that first step, right? Hey, if champion has low engagement, then here are the plays we have. Here's the marketing plays and sales plays to drive engagement. Now we need to qualify that individual, right? We need to arm that individual. And then as soon as we get that qualified and really engaged champion, we move into the stakeholders. We're 5.4, right? There's multiple buyers, right?
Always.
The same practices go there, right? And then, hey, none of these people have ever visited on their own our website or attended a webinar or done an executive experience with us, right? Mm-hmm. This, again, SLA is based off that. But now we have our account teams grown to, it starts off with that sales rep and SDR, but then it grows to like the RVP when it gets big into the sales leader. Then it grows into like the solution engineers. Then when you get some, people from the account that you're trying to work with, you get the champion in there, you get some, really good coaches to do that playbook. So the whole data tells us what plays to go run based off engagement.
Got it.
And what we find is like, hey, if they're highly engaged and they're not wanting to incorporate us, that tells marketing like, hey, produce better content, right? Step your side up. So it's not always just to call out sales, right? But it's really to give a check on marketing as well. It's like, hey, look, I'm 100% optimized with your campaigns. They're attending to do this, but we're not progressing anything. Well, we got to tune in our message a little bit more on the marketing side if they're attending our events and not wanting to do more with us.
Absolutely. I get very excited when the initiative is around providing air cover on opportunities. So I think that's a huge opportunity for marketing to prove their value for sure.
100%.
Well, it's crazy how time flies so quickly on these. But I do want to pause for arguably the most fun part of the show, which is the BDR horror stories.
So back when I was at BDR, part of it was when you get the meeting, you have to do the slides. So you're the one clicking the slides and stuff like that. And this was a huge opportunity. They were trying to do like a pre-post, back when I was at Qualtrics, like a pre-post advertisement study of like how effectiveness were the ads. And this was like with a huge sports brand. I won't give names or anything, but this was a major deal. And I was doing the slides on this, and on your MacBook, you know how we always have our text messages on there, so they pop up as a little banner and stuff on the side. I didn't know how to turn those off. So during like halfway through this, where I'm already shaking, just pressing one button, I had one job, literally one job, press the button at the right time. My mom started texting me. So I got these banner ads, and you know how those like you hear dad jokes, right? But then there's like mom text. It's like, oh, it should be its own domain. So it's just like those embarrassing things like, Mom, why are you even talking to me about that? So it just kept going. And I was just so embarrassed. Now, it turned out to be cool with those other people that, the people that we're on the line with. But man, my heart just dropped, and I was like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. So that's my BDR horror story. Make sure you turn off your notifications so you don't get lit up by your mom.
I love it. You could turn that into a funny joke, hopefully. Nope.
It's funny now, but not in the moment. I'm still kind of like shaking because of it. Just like the whole, don't mess it up. Like, hey, we got that senior leader on the call. They're all eating this up, and then mom text.
Of course. We have all been there. It could have been worse. Yeah. Well, I would love to wrap up then, Bryce. Thank you for sharing that. With what selling with intent means to you.
Yeah, I think selling with intent is humanizing. You need to be human. You need to have contextual information about them. And the more you're able to just to be yourself, combine your professional brand as your personal brand with your company's brand. And if you have a good understanding of both of them and combine them so you can be yourself, the intent will manifest itself without you doing anything unnatural. So again, leverage what you have. There's so much resources you have, but if you're able to do that and be yourself with it, you're going to be really successful. So that's what I think selling with intent is.
I love it. Sounds like you've been doing that since your uni, college / days.
Got to send it.
Thank you so much for joining conversation. Good luck with baby on the way. Couldn't be excited for you. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be live again in 2 weeks. And you can always catch the recordings on your favorite podcast platform. So thank you, and we will see you soon. Bye, Bryce.
See ya. Thanks.